Let's get right into it. Number 8. The man they couldn't hang. John Babacom Lee was led to the gallows 3 times in a single morning in 1885. He was convicted of murdering his elderly employer, Emma Keese, though the evidence against him was just a cut on his arm and some bloody clothes. On execution day at Exeter Prison, the hangman, James Barry, checked everything twice. The trapdoor was ready. Barry pulled the lever, but nothing happened. The trapdoor refused to open. They tried again. Same result. 3rd time. Still nothing. This hanging platform had executed dozens of people before Lee. The same platform worked perfectly during a test just hours earlier, but when Lee was standing on it, the trapdoor just wouldn't budge. They took Lee off the platform and tested the trapdoor again. It worked perfectly. No issues. Put Lee back on, and it was stuck solid as a rock. The Home Secretary changed Lee's death sentence to life in prison. He served 22 years, got released, and became known as the man they couldn't hang, making money telling his story in music halls. Number 7. Half-hanged Maggie. Maggie Dixon woke up inside her own coffin in 1724. She was a servant in an inn near Edinburgh, Scotland. Her husband had abandoned her, and she was struggling to make ends meet. She started a relationship with the innkeeper's son and got pregnant. The baby was born prematurely and died shortly after birth. Maggie, terrified of losing her job and being branded immoral, threw the baby's body into the River Tweed. The tiny body was discovered, and Maggie was arrested for concealing her pregnancy. Back then, just hiding a pregnancy was enough to get you killed. On September 2, 1724, Maggie was taken to the grass market in Edinburgh for her hanging. After hanging for 30 minutes, the doctor declared her dead. Her body was put in a coffin and loaded onto a cart, but people started hearing noises from the coffin, knocking sounds, then moaning. When they opened it, there was Maggie, alive and conscious. According to Scots law, her punishment was legally complete. She had been hanged until dead, according to the doctor. They couldn't hang her again. Maggie lived another 40 years and had more children. The locals called her Half-Hang-It Maggie. There's still a pub named after her in Edinburgh today. Number 6. The teenager who survived the chair. At 16 years old, Willie Francis was strapped into Louisiana's portable electric chair, nicknamed Gruesome Gertie. He had been convicted by an all-white jury in 1945 with no physical evidence. When they flipped the switch, something went terribly wrong. Instead of a quick death, Willie felt excruciating pain as the chair malfunctioned. He screamed words that would haunt witnesses for years. "I'm not dying. Take it off. Let me breathe." He later described it as feeling like pins and needles sticking all over me. The current wasn't strong enough to kill him, just strong enough to torture him. After several agonizing minutes, they stopped the execution. Willie was taken back to his cell, but his nightmare wasn't over. The state of Louisiana wanted a do-over. They went to the Supreme Court to ask permission to execute Willie again, and the Supreme Court said yes. They ruled 5-4 that a failed execution doesn't count as cruel and unusual punishment, because it wasn't intentionally cruel, just incompetent. 1 year after surviving the electric chair, Willie was executed again. This time, they made sure the chair worked. He was 17 when he died. Number 5. The maid who woke up on the dissection table. Anne Green was a maid working in Oxford, England in 1650. She got pregnant by her employer's grandson, but the baby was born prematurely and died. Back then, if you were an unmarried woman and your baby died, you were automatically suspected of murder. Anne was arrested and sentenced to death by hanging. On December 14th, they took her to the gallows. Her friends, trying to be helpful, pulled on her legs to speed up her death. After 30 minutes of hanging, they cut her down and pronounced her dead. Her body was given to the local medical school for dissection. The doctors put her body in a coffin and carried her to the dissection room. But when they opened the coffin, they noticed she was breathing. The doctors decided to try and save her. They poured hot cordial down her throat, rubbed her arms and legs, and even gave her a tobacco enema. Surprisingly, these weird treatments worked. Anne woke up and made a full recovery. The authorities couldn't hang her again since she'd already served her sentence. Everyone saw this as a sign from God that she was innocent. Anne was pardoned and went on to live a full life. Number 4. The 2.5-hour execution. Doyle Ham was strapped to a gurney for 2.5 hours, while prison staff repeatedly stabbed him with needles, trying to find a vein to kill him. He was on death row in Alabama for a murder from 1987, but by 2018, he had developed severe lymphatic cancer. The cancer had spread throughout his body, making his veins practically impossible to find. Alabama decided to proceed with the execution anyway. For 2.5 hours, The execution team jabbed needles into his legs, feet, and groin. They punctured his bladder. They hit his femoral artery. Blood was soaking through his clothes as they kept trying to find a usable vein. He was conscious through all of this, knowing each stab was another attempt to kill him. After 11 failed attempts and pools of blood, they finally gave up as the execution warrant expired at midnight. Ham's lawyer had warned the state this would happen. He'd filed multiple reports showing that Ham's veins were unusable. Ham sued the state, and Alabama struck a deal, agreeing never to try to execute him again. He died of natural causes in his prison cell in 2021. Number 3. The Unhangable Australian. The year is 1803. In Sydney, Australia, Joseph Samuel, a convicted murderer, was sentenced to death by hanging. On execution day, they put the rope around his neck. The cart pulls away, but the rope snaps. They bring out a new, stronger rope. The cart pulls away again. The second rope breaks. The crowd started murmuring that it was a miracle. The officials get a third rope, triple check everything, and try once more. The third rope breaks. The crowd goes wild. People are shouting that it's divine intervention. The governor was called in, and seeing the situation, changed Samuel's sentence to life in prison. He earned the nickname, the Unhangable Man. Number 2. Torture before a groundbreaking execution. Kenneth Eugene Smith survived one execution only to face another. In 2022, the Alabama execution team spent hours stabbing needles into his arms and hands, desperately searching for a vein. They kept cutting into his flesh, digging around for usable blood vessels. Smith said it felt like they were playing pin the tail on the donkey with his arms. After hours of this torture, they had to give up because the death warrant expired, but the state wasn't done with him. They decided to try something new, nitrogen hypoxia. This had never been used for execution before. On January 25, 2024, they strapped him to the gurney again. They put a mask over his face and turned on the nitrogen. Witnesses say he started writhing and thrashing against the restraints for several minutes. The execution took 22 minutes. Smith's last words were, "Tonight Alabama causes humanity to take a step backwards." He became the only person in modern U.S. history to survive one execution attempt only to be killed by a new experimental method. Number 1. The man who took 9 bullets. Wenceslao Moguel was fighting for Pancho Villa's forces in 1915 when government troops captured him during the Mexican Revolution. They didn't waste time with a trial. They just lined him up against a wall and ordered the firing squad to do their thing. 8 bullets ripped through his body, but that wasn't enough for the soldiers. The officer in charge walked up to Wenceslao's body, put his gun to his head, and pulled the trigger. That's called the coup de grace, meant to finish off anyone who might still be breathing. But Wenceslao wasn't dead. He was conscious enough to wait until nightfall, then drag himself to a nearby church. A local found him and secretly nursed him back to health. Wenceslao survived, but his face was never the same. The bullet to his head left him with a permanently twisted jaw and scars that told his story. He went on to become a celebrity, even appearing on Ripley's Believe It or Not in 1937. People called him El Fusilado, the executed one. That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos in the future. Subscribe to see them.